Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Jen and Wizzy's Fanfiction Power Hour. I'm your host, Jen Firebird. These last names are, these new last names are getting kind of so-so. Like, it's not a bad last name, but it could be better. And with me today, as always, is my co-host, Wizzy Puff.
Hey, everybody. Sorry I didn't get time to powder my nose, but, you know, this is what you gotta deal with these kind of tight schedules. In the
That's
world
true.
of stardom.
Don't I know it? So, to those of you who are just like, I don't know, listening to like all the Celestia Code episodes, yeah, name change. I'm transgender. We talked like a little bit more about it in episode 158, so you can go listen to that one.
Just listen to it. Listen to the whole thing. It's a really good episode.
Listen to it, damn you. Slap.
That was a really good story.
Thank you. Okay, so today we are getting back into the Celestia Code by Esau. Something that we were originally going to get back to in November, and then a bunch of stuff happened, and then we didn't. But now we're here doing it again. This time, it's a bit different, because this time, we now have the approval of the author.
Woohoo!
That's right. Esau, or Isaw, or Tusaw, whatever the heck your goddamn name is, you son of a bitch, has seen our show. And, well, we might have impacted it a bit. So, a few episodes ago, we pointed out an error, and they changed it since then. That's right. We're practically gods.
That's right. We're basically Gogito, because we helped edit that story so much.
Yep. And another thing, they made a blog post about us when they saw it. It's titled, "And Now for Something Completely Different." So go read that blog post. I'm not going to read it here because we have a butt ton to get through. But I will say, canonically, I don't care what anyone else says, not just a headcanon now. Canonically, yes, Jigsaw is Irish.
Yes!
So good job there, Wizzy.
Stars above!
All right. So yep. Oh, it snowed recently. That's just a little something in my life that happened.
Did you get to make any like snowmen?
No.
How much did it stick?
I actually probably could have, but I didn't want to go outside because it was cold.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Another thing, just because I want to mention it here, because I have mentioned it in a previous episode, it's been nearly a year since I started on my journey of the biggest regret of my life. It's been nearly a year since I started Worm. Such promise. So much disappointment. Never read Worm. Okay. Enough of me stalling. Let's get into the Celestia Code by Esau. Chapter 21. Some disassembly required. And then it says Chapter 21, some disassembly required. I touched the crystal that sealed the stairway and watched a wall of stone blocks slide steadily upward, slamming into place like the doors of a tomb. A light spell is okay to use here, I told Celestia. Just drop it when we get to the bottom. There's enough light from glow spots in the cavern to see perfectly well. Her horn glowed, a soft peach color rather than normal changeling green, and she followed Jigsaw down the stairs. Wait! Jigsaw,
Oh no.
what happened last chapter?
Oh, stars above.
Or I said the last chapter, the last 2 chapters. The last episode.
Okay. So in chapter 19, we had a whole thing where Chrysalis was telling Twilight about her origin story and how apparently she came from the fallen kingdom that the cornucopia is from, where they hated uh, other ponies of different kinds, like, you know, the freaking. It was the unicorns hated the earth ponies and the Pegasi. And then they also really hated Celestia because she represented both of those packed into one package. And so in this whole civilization, Chrysalis was trying to create a spell that would make a pony just like, I don't know, she said something about changing their form rather than their appearance to make them not ugly anymore. I don't know what that means exactly. But yeah, she made that spell, and apparently because of that, it triggered. This is what I also don't understand: how she became an alicorn after this, because she became an alicorn, and then she got chased out of this village because now
Well,
she represents the dirty Pegasi.
okay, so how she became an Alcorn, it's very simple. She just performed a very impressive feat of magic, like
But
creating
they
a spell
didn't
that would
specify
change
what
your
that feat
appearance.
was. Like, they didn't directly say that in the story. Like, that's what caused her to turn into an alicorn. They just said, like, oh, she did that, and then.
Essentially, she just performed a powerful feat of magic, and then that. It's very similar to how it happened in the show. And they don't, I guess, outright explain it in this fic, because
Okay.
if you're reading the fic, you likely would have watched the show.
Yeah.
But essentially, she would have, like Twilight, finished the spell, and it would have been so powerful that it blew her up, and she would have been taken to the celestial plane, where she and Celestia had a talk, and Celestia had her fulfill her destiny in becoming an alicorn.
Okay. She talked about some kind of metamorphosis, horrid transformation that happened that.
That comes after. That's when she turned into a changeling.
Okay. So I guess something like that happened. All her hate inside her turned her into this metamorphosis changeling.
Yeah. After she was run out of town.
Yeah, after she was run out of town, then she got metamorphosized into this hideous changeling thing. Hideous, you know, in quotes. Like, who wouldn't want to have Swiss cheese wings, is what I'm saying. Swiss cheese legs. But yeah, and then she got all of her babies. She just started giving birth all over the place. And then she brought all the babies back to the city to eat all the love and compassion in their town. And because they had no love or compassion, they all murdered each other. And that's why this is now an abandoned city. Which brings us to the next chapter, where Twilight tries to lecture her about why that was wrong. And she's just like, I don't get it. They killed each other. I didn't kill them. They killed each other. And she's like, you made them kill each other, Chrysalis. And she still didn't get it. So then eventually she's like, uh, why are you friends with my soldiers? Something about that. And then she's like, because they're good people. And then she's like, how dare you talk about my soldiers that way? That's disgusting. And then she flew out. And now she wants to, like, I don't know, she's probably gonna do something villainous. So Twilight went back and talked to the gang, Jigsaw, Kashari, and Cesaresia, and informed them of everything. And the changeling soldiers, Kashari and Cesaresia, were like, "We're gonna stick with you, Twilight. You actually showed us compassion. All she ever did was give us an expired Arby's gift card on our birthday." Yeah, which brings us to the current time, where they are preparing to, I don't know, invade Chrysalis, defend against Chrysalis. They're trying to do something, and also
Just
protect
prepare.
the cornucopia.
Yes, the cornucopia. Keep forgetting that's a thing, but that's a thing. Still hoping Jigsaw gets killed
It
by
is
it.
the MacGuffin. No, it's not even a MacGuffin anymore. They explained it.
Wait, are MacGuffins specifically not explained?
I'm not sure. Let me look up definition. An object or a device in a movie or book that serves merely as a trigger for the plot. Oh, okay.
Huh.
Yeah, I guess maybe it is a MacGuffin kind of.
Yeah, like the One Ring in Lord of the Rings.
There's only one?
Well, there were several. I don't have time to get into this with you. There were several, they were all destroyed. It was important. All right. Getting back to it.
What is the plan, Twilight?
Jigsaw called back to me as she descended.
Please tell me you're not just improvising.
Oh, I definitely had a plan, but I certainly wasn't going to tell her it had come to me in a dream. Oh, great. Now we have to remember that. No sense in making her nervous. Okay, more nervous. I noticed that the reactive blasts from the crystal came from the spikes on its surface. I'm pretty sure they're designed for that purpose. A coating of little spurs and branches that act defensively, like armor against potentially hostile magic.
If you say so. You're the expert, I guess.
The doubt in her voice was in no way comforting.
How does that affect us?
It means that step 1 is to strip the armor away from the central core of the crystal. Then we can access the dark energy directly. It should be fairly easy. I saw the pool of light cast by Jigsaw's horn jerk and come to a stop.
Easy?
She asked, sounding just a teensy bit outraged. Jigsaw.
When were you going to tell me?
Hold your horses, Jigsaw. Draining the crystal is still going to be difficult and dangerous. We need to be as cautious as possible, even during those so-called easy bits. She continued to descend, remaining silent, at least for the time being. As for draining the dark energy away, I continued, I've come up with a way to neutralize most of it. Ah, Cesaresia quipped. Finally, some good news. It is good news, isn't it? Pretty much, I said, in clipped tones. Considering that the amount of dark energy that crystal could release into the land, even non-explosively, would turn it into an environment that would make the Everfree Forest look like a potted geranium. Yes, it's good news. There was a long pause where the only sound was that of hooves on stone. Then Jigsaw said to Cesaresia,
This is the first trap. Here where the chalk marks are. Just don't put a hoof on that step and you'll be fine. There's a pit a few steps lower, but it's uncovered and obvious.
Once we were past the treacherous staircase, Cesaresia spoke up again, this time with considerably less sarcasm in her voice. So, we remove the armor, then drain and neutralize the crystal's energy. Is that all that needs to be done? I had debated with myself whether or not to share my other concerns with Jigsaw and the General. They deserved to know what they were getting into, but worrying them with a possibly non-existent menace wasn't fair either. Telling them that one of the unicorns who had probably built the monstrous crystal below us had also booby-trapped an entire city to disappear for 1,000 years Well, I just couldn't see how that would be helpful. Hopefully, was all I said. And then, so they wouldn't start asking uncomfortable questions, Rule 2, change the subject. Ah, that's right, Chrysalis had trained Twilight in the art of lying.
Oh, yeah! Because Twilight sucked at it.
Yeah, you got it, man. The main difficulty will be in placing the grounding spikes exactly. In order to get the waveforms to cancel each other out, their location will be critical. On top of that, you two can't use your magic to help because the spikes and cables need to be in place before I strip off the armor. Are you sure? Celestia began.
Hang on.
Jigsaw interrupted her.
Twilight, what do you mean by waveforms canceling each other?
I took a deep breath. Well, magical energy produces pulses in 5 dimensions at certain wavelengths, determined by granularity of the field substrate of the originating dimension and matrix. Jigsaw held up a hoof to stop me and said,
Yep, I think she's sure.
I grinned. I'll be standing by to smooth out any rough spots, using my own dark magic to flatten out any unexpected surges. Your dark magic? Celestia asked incredulously. I thought you Equestrians were all sweetness and light. I noticed, with no small degree of satisfaction, that she hadn't said, you ponies. Brightest lights oft cast deepest shadows, I quoted, for lack of any better reply. What have I gotten myself into? She muttered. I didn't have a good answer for that either. When we got to the cavern, we followed the same rough path toward the dome at the crystal's base. I let my horn smoke and simmer with dark magic as I passed through the delusion trap with no effect whatsoever. That was one of my guesses proven correct, at least. I backkicked one of the little crystals that powered the trap, and it shattered with a puff of purple smoke and a splatter of green sparks. Should have thought of that last time. I mentally rebuked myself. Too busy gaping at the giant crystal, I guess. When we got into the dome, I realized that we would have to clear away the remains of Professor Sharphoof and her colleagues in order to make room for arranging the cables. Ew. I thought we ought to try to bring them back to Canterlot for a proper burial. The racists? Okay.
Even gotta treat your enemies with humanity. Or I guess, pony-manity?
But they're racists.
Yeah, but, if you make the exception for them, then people are going to make the exception for you next time, maybe.
Okay, but they're wrong.
Okay.
I'm right. When I do it, it's fine.
But this brings them closer to the civilization so people can dance on their graves.
That's a good point, though.
Yeah. I thought I'd win you over with that one.
So I tried to shift them as gently as possible. Unfortunately for me, they pretty much fell into dust and leather as soon as I touched them with my magic. Yay! Dark magic doesn't have the capacity for fine control, and fine control isn't my strong suit even when I'm using normal magic. I set all of the remains down in a jumbled heap, far away from the bronze control hoops, trying hard not to think about what exactly I was levitating.
Twilight, look!
Jigsaw said as I turned away from my grisly task. On the floor, where the body of Professor Sharphoof had lain, was a flat, mummified-looking chunk of thin fabric. It took me a second to realize that it was one of her saddlebags. She must have fallen on it when she died, and her body had protected it from the full influence of the crystal. I brushed at it with my magic, but it held together. There was no time then to examine it, so I bundled the whole thing into my own saddlebag and got on with the preparations. "You two stay in the dome," I told Celestia and Jigsaw. "I'm going to teleport all the equipment down to us, and the wall should provide you with some protection if something goes wrong." Everything arrived intact, with no untoward side effects. "Remember," I said, as my two companions peered out of the dome's doorway. "Use teeth and hooves only. Unpack that crate of grounding rods and take them and the reel of thin wire inside the dome. I'll work out here for now. Let me know when you're finished." We got everything laid out pretty quickly, and then I got down to the delicate part of the operation. I couldn't bring myself to trust the others to make the necessary measurements with the fine degree of accuracy that was required. So I had to do that myself, while they waited and conversed in low voices. After I'd triple-checked all of my distances and angles, I began driving the long copper rods into the hard stone of the cavern. I had cut to length several sections of the heavy cable, and Jigsaw and Celestia pulled them into place as I worked on the rods. When we finished outside, we continued inside the dome, pulling in the free ends of all the heavy cables and attaching them to a big electrical bus that I'd placed under the center of the crystal. I would have preferred a ring-shaped piece of brass or copper instead of the oblong of copper and insulating material, but evidently nothing of that description had been within the crystal's range. I began driving in the rods that would hold the web of finer wire that would act as resonating guide. When I stopped to remeasure one rod and changed its location by less than a straw's width, Jigsaw couldn't help but comment.
Twilight, it looks like you're just sticking these things in at random. Does it really need to be that exact?
Oh my god, Jigsaw just can't help but criticize me. Everything I do is wrong. I could have told her that a mistake the length of an eyelash, the mean length of a pony eyelash is 1.63 inches, so that's a fairly decent safety margin, might get us all vaporized, but I really didn't want to worry her. Twilight, that seems rather uncool. Like, if you're doing something this dangerous, you probably should have warned them beforehand. Like, I'm pretty sure
But then they
Jigsaw...
might not want to be here.
I'm pretty sure Jigsaw would have done this either way. Because she's Jigsaw and she's
True.
a fucking insane pony. But, like...
Yeah, she does not know what she gets herself into.
Yeah. I don't know about this one, Twi. I don't know. But then again, I don't know about you going through this whole thing, rigmarole that you're already doing here, so whatever. "You know how fussy I am about stuff like this," was all I said. It seemed to relax her a bit. When I was finished and the connections had been all checked one last time, I went to the controls of the bronze hoops. "I'm turning off the limiters now, so please try to think nothing but happy thoughts. And don't say anything from now until the crystal is dead, okay?"
Come on, I want to be more Jigsaw.
I agree. The two of them looked at each other and then back at me, nodding. After I'd removed all the safety constraints on the dark crystal, I led us all out of the dome and picked out a big stalagmite halfway across the cavern floor. "We'll take cover behind that," I said. I carried several extra rods and a spool of light wire along with me. If anything got badly out of tune, I figured I might be able to rebalance it from a distance. Once we were safely behind the stalagmite, I settled in and really let my dark magic flow free. Celestia took a couple of steps away from me, and even Jigsaw flinched. Jigsaw's reaction I could understand, but the ex-changeling? Considering where she'd grown up, I was a bit miffed that she'd consider me anywhere near spooky. Fuck
Are
you.
Twilight, that sounds so racist.
I'm a princess. How dare you? I reached out and touched the now dead limiting mechanism, stretching and pulling at the interlinked hoops until they were all large enough to slide upward around the crystal, but not large enough to avoid the spikes and spurs. Then I did the gravity versus momentum trick I'd come up with in my dream. Oh yeah, that's what was happening. Okay, I remember that now.
I wish I did.
I wish you did too, buddy. I kept putting energy into the opposing forces until the cavern was echoing with the crackle and hiss of excess power spattering the inside of the dome. Then I flipped the direction of the gravity. I had really wanted to directly observe the result and had planned to raise a shield around us to protect from stray energy and shrapnel. But everything happened too quickly. The hoops became a golden blur along the height of the crystal as they obliterated the branching bits and then slammed into the ceiling of the cavern. Rubble and stalactites began to fall, most missing the crystal, but quite a number bouncing off its now smoother surface. The rotating mass wobbled just a fraction. Not a good thing. I quickly reached out with my dark magic and stabilized it, then took what I figured was the biggest risk of the day. I sent a lance of pure, normal magic at the base point of the crystal to crack it. Oh, we're fucked.
You just need some duct tape, don't worry.
If I had been mistaken about the spikes and spurs being the only source of reactive countermeasures, I would have been, well, toast, as Rainbow Dash likes to say. Fortunately, I was still untoasted after my attack. Even better yet, the dark power in the crystal was rushing out, being channeled away by my system of energy drains.
Is it working?
Jigsaw gasped as she peered around the edge of the stalagmite. I really wish I had prepared some clever quip for the occasion, but all I could say was, "Yes, it seems to be. Wizzy, come up with a quip for me."
You think?
Perfect, I'm gonna steal that. You think? I reverted to the use of dark magic and gently probed the web of copper we had set up. The surges of varying pulses were canceling each other out perfectly. I waited for any imbalances to show up, but the system was operating just the way I'd designed it. Magical energy phasing into simple, non-specific forms. Light, heat, vibration, and sound that dispersed almost as soon as it was created. God, I'm good.
What an image.
Looking upward, we could even see the dangerous magic bleeding away. The top of the crystal was going gray, and, oh, it's getting old.
Oh, it's a nice little elder crystal. It is pretty old, actually. Like, older than freaking Twilight.
Yeah, she's old.
She's ancient.
Oh, God. Twilight, more like dinosaur light.
Eee!
The top of the crystal was going gray and even white along the edges. At the rate the color change was traveling down the crystal, I estimated it would only be 20 minutes or so before it was a just dead chunk of mineral. Of course, we didn't get nearly that long. The crystal wasn't quite 2/3 drained when the ceiling fell in. The earlier falling debris was nothing compared to the weight of paving stones.
And of course, on top of that ceiling, alligators. Thousands fall in all at once.
Oh my god, that would be awesome. The earlier falling debris was nothing compared to the weight of paving stones, tiles, and gems that crashed into the top of the big crystal, causing it to wobble even more than before. Worse still were the cracks that shot down the length of it, because when they reached the level that still held dark magic, it began to leak. Ew. The beautiful, falling hum of dark magic harmonizing itself into random energy became a throbbing heterodyne of mismatched tones that made my teeth ache.
I don't like reading throbbing hetero. I'm sorry.
It only reads throbbing het for me, and then it does the dash thing
Oh, that's
where
gross.
it appears at the end there. Jigsaw shrieked in surprise, and Cesaresia cursed. "Jeez the fuck!" is what I assume she says.
And they're like, who's Jesus?
A friend. I have friends.
What? Inside of that hive? I thought all of you guys just, like, smashed your face into rocks until you cried yourself to sleep. That's what Twilight thinks it's like in there.
We aren't that boring. I assume there are days like that.
Yeah, but there are days like that in the real world.
True. Before she became a general, she was actually an accountant.
Oh, that's good for her.
I was far too busy to indulge in either of those tension-relieving activities. I took hold of the crystal with my magic, first trying to stabilize its erratic wobble, and then attempting to seal the still growing cracks. I might have been able to do it if I hadn't had to fight off the attacking changeling drones. Oh, okay. Oh, dearie me. Now we're gonna have to kill changelings.
And Twilight's just like, hey guys, do you know these? Do you know any of them? Could you talk to them for us?
Unfortunately, they all hate the general.
Oh god. Turns out she was like a drill sergeant with them.
She was just really
You
awful.
made our lives miserable.
I
in
did
the
it because it was
hive.
funny.
Don't you know how hard that is to do?
Oh, give me a break. Yeah, I assume they all know each other. They are a hive mind.
Do they actually? They don't actually have like superpowered hive mind abilities to telepathically communicate, do they?
I don't know. It's been complicated to figure out. Or maybe not.
I would accept like they're like bees where they smell each other's hormones all over the place, telling
That
them
could
what
be
to
it.
do, but I just feel like they're kind of more independent than a real hive mind in fiction.
They did explain some of it.
Oh.
There might have been, I think I remember something about like it was a while away, or because they were so far away they couldn't communicate with the hive, like the hive mind.
Oh.
That could have been something,
Oh.
but
Okay.
I don't know. I could be completely wrong on that.
Huh. Reminds me of She-Ra. Spoilers for She-Ra, but you remember the one Hordak guy who they disconnected from the hive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've successfully slowed the episode down,
Woohoo.
they swarmed down out of the hole in the ceiling, spreading out into the cavern as they searched for us. It didn't take them long to spot the alicorn whose horn was blazing with black and green magic. They had spellcasters working as they flew, using warding and canceling magic, no doubt designed to work against what they knew of my shield and offensive spells. Luckily, they hadn't ever considered fighting against dark magic. With an aching jaw due to clenching teeth, I swatted them out of the air and pinned them to the cavern floor with roiling blobs of thick black goo that instantly bonded with the rock of the cavern. I hit them in bunches, and it only took a minute or two to clear the air and imprison them all. Twilight missed her calling as a exterminator.
True. Seriously, imagine her using like tiny little dots of that goo on flies to catch them out of the air.
Hell yeah. Could use that sometimes. I turned my attention back to the crystal just before the second wave of changelings poured into the cave. But it was too late. The top third of the crystal sheared off and toppled, crashing to the cavern floor with a bone-jarring impact. The cavern lit up in ghastly shades of actinic green as the remaining dark energy erupted from the ruined crystal. Changelings sparked and vanished in midair as tendrils of the dark power hit them. But some lucky ones were able to retreat back up through the hole where the cornucopia mosaic had been. I couldn't do much but try to protect the three of us from the deadly bolts and lashes that were ripping at every surface in the cave. My shield held firm, but I could see that the dark magic was already distorting the fabric of reality around us. Stalagmites began to move and writhe. A couple of trapped changelings started to grow sucker and eye-covered tentacles, and that, I knew, was just the beginning of the horrors to come. Well, fork me. Alright, that'll be interesting. Author's note. An illustration for the last scene of this chapter can be found here. Final showdown at the Dark Crystal Engine. Holy skibbity, that's cool. Wow.
Oh, I didn't realize there's a link.
There it is.
That wasn't quite what I was picturing, but that is
Yeah.
a lot prettier.
Well, now we can picture it like that.
It's actually surprisingly close to what I was picturing. Like, more than I would have thought it was.
It's completely different from what I was picturing. But I like it more than whatever the hell I was picturing, so. Ooh, that's cool. All right.
Thank you, Plain Oasis.
Good job, Plain Oasis. Special thanks to Gogito for an excellent editing job on this chapter. The guy has a gift for sniffing out the clunky phrasing and mixed sentences that I'm prone to.
I was saying I hope Gogito returns.
It's true. Well, there you go. You got
That
it.
guy does have a gift for sniffing stuff out.
Yeah, it's got a good sniffer on him. All right, and that was chapter whatever. We got to get through this, so we're going to get straight on to the next chapter. Okay? Okay.
No.
No. Don't
I mean, yes.
dare tell me no, young man.
That sounds problematic. I'm telling the authorities.
You wouldn't dare. You need me and you know it.
I need you like your dough.
Chapter 22. A matter of perspective. And then it says chapter 22 again, a matter of perspective. Simply defending us from the dark magic was an untenable position. In a very short time, it would have made our environment too hostile to survive. Even if I could cover every possible angle of attack, while the flood of dark magic mutated the very ground I was standing on, I had to deal with the source of the problem. I told Jigsaw and Ciceressia to get into the lee of the stalagmite and stay there. Then I dropped my shield. I planned to deal with each part of the problem in descending order of how appallingly dangerous it was, and got stuck on the very first one. I found that increasingly erratic wobble of the broken crystal would shortly cause it to completely shatter, releasing all the rest of the energy within in a single blast. Nothing in the city could possibly survive an event like that. I tried using my dark magic to stabilize it, but found that the fallen top fragment was still exerting a strong magical pull on the rest of the crystal. The contagion effect was making it want to reconnect with the main body of the crystal with a force that I didn't have the strength to directly resist. I needed some way of nullifying it before I could do anything else. I remembered the wire and grounding rods I had brought with me. If I could make a connecting circuit from the fallen fragment through me. The problem was that I had to fend off the blasts from the lower part of the crystal and occasional creeping horrors at the same time. I needed help. "Jigsaw!" I screamed while simultaneously stomping an obstinate tentacle that used to be a changeling's foreleg. I gave that mare full credit for bravery, because she was at my side in an instant. Despite having to expose herself to the howling chaos of the disintegrating crystal. "The wire," I shouted at her. "Wrap one end around my rear hoof and the other around a spike. Then send the spike over to the fallen piece of the crystal and whoa!" I had to pause to blast the multi-legged, fanged thing that reared up in front of us. You're all multi-legged.
Okay, but I mean, we're multi-legged as well.
Yeah. So it doesn't help.
Why multi-legged?
Like,
this is like the first time that I can say poor description, Esau.
Esau, get better.
Clearly Gogito didn't help edit this one.
Let's not say that too soon.
Okay, it's my prediction though.
Try to get the spike in contact with the crystal, even if you can't embed it. Celestia joined us and stood by Jigsaw, using her own magic to blast away at the similar nasties that were crawling and slithering towards us. When Jigsaw had attached both ends of the wire, she took the rod in her mouth and started to make for the fragment. "Jigsaw, stop!" I yelled. "Use your magic." She shook her head.
She has the rod in her mouth, so...
Yep. Good luck.
"It's too far, out of range of my horn for something this heavy. I'll have to carry it closer."
Can we all just give Wizzy a round of applause for doing that in an Irish accent still?
My interpretation of an Irish accent.
It's the closest thing he can get.
It's my impression of a horse with a bit in their mouth.
"You're not going out there," Celestia hissed at her and moved to block her path.
"Just what do you expect me to do? Throw the stupid... oh, right.
Jigsaw dropped the spike and caught it in her magic.
Ceci, spread out the coil of the wire so it won't tangle when it gets pulled out fast. Yeah, like that."
Oh, baby, she's pulling out that fucking, that athlete scholarship of hers.
Always forget that about her.
Yep, she's a jock. Jigsaw hefted the spike, muttering,
"Heavy. Not quite the same length as a javelin. Sucky balance. Oh well. Here goes nothing.
And then she dies.
No.
She just has a heart attack, you know?
Jigsaw. It's like Spike crushes her. Actually stabs herself.
Trips.
Oops.
Tricked on a branch or something. She set herself in a solid stance and lifted the copper bar over her head, letting it drift back until it was above her shoulders. The magical connection from her horn to the long spike became a series of many light, elastic threads, and then there was another pulse of her magic, anchoring the rear of the spike to the ground behind her with a solid, inflexible bond. I had no idea what she was up to, but she certainly seemed to know what she was doing.
Stand clear of the wire!
She yelled before leaping forward with all of her strength. Her magic tether to the ground prevented the spike from moving. It was the stretchy part between her and the copper rod that lengthened until it couldn't elongate any more. When that happened, it brought her up short, making her rear up and arch her back. Just as I thought she might topple over backwards, the muscles of her neck, chest, belly, and haunches all tightened in sequence, snapping into hard definition beneath her blue coat. As she let go of the anchoring part of her magic, I understood then.
Hold on 1 second. Is Jigsaw blue?
Yep.
Blue Jock? You already have one of these in your life, Twilight.
Oh yeah, you're right. Twilight, stop hanging out with people.
Twilight, seriously, get a life of your own. Stop trying to make friends.
God.
Like, I know you're the friendship princess or whatever, but seriously.
She just goes back to how she was at the beginning of the series.
She's like, Jigsaw really didn't turn out well. Can't really trust people, I guess.
Oh well. It has been unfortunate. We haven't gotten enough of evil Jigsaw this time around.
Right.
And I worry we won't get that much.
She was like, what did she... Oh, that's right, she was drinking and having sex and stuff. Like, where's that Jigsaw? Where's her swearing? I need
Where's the
R-rated
slur Jigsaw?
Yeah, when does she bring out the slur and then she's like, what? I can say it! I have the pass. I'm an wait, I'm a unicorn? I always forget which one she is.
Yeah, screwhead.
That one is actually like a clever, it sounds insulting and it makes sense. You know?
Yeah. I like it. I understood then. She had constructed the magical equivalent of a slingshot. Who knew that sports could be so scientific? Oh, Twilight, I think you would actually really like sports.
Mm.
All of the energy stored in the connection between her horn and the copper rod was suddenly translated into motion, and the spike flashed up and across the cavern, pulling the wire behind it with a hissing sound. We all watched it fly. Even some of the monstrous things squelching among the stalagmites turned their heads to follow it. The spike arched down right on target and buried itself into the crystal fragment.
Woohoo!
Screamed Jigsaw, dancing with joy.
Score 1 for the gal with the athletic scholarship. Yo, she mentioned it. Let's go.
Hell yeah. Things began to happen in rapid sequence after that. I stabilized the crystal's wobble by feeding back its own energy through the wire to the fallen fragment, Once the danger of imminent vaporization was gone, I worked on sealing the open face of the crystal that was pouring out dark energy. As soon as the black tendrils and green whips of wild magic began to die away, the next squad of changelings began to emerge from the hole in the ceiling. We were caught between stopping the dark magic and fighting the army of Queen Chrysalis. I had to let just enough magic leak out to keep the changelings out of the cavern, while trying to redirect most of the flow down the sides of the crystal to my system of energy drains. A controlled flow wasn't enough to deter the enemy troops, and a full flood was going to fill the cavern with deadly energy and things. So I alternated, letting the crystal erupt and taming its magic in a pattern that was, hopefully, random enough that the changelings wouldn't risk a sudden rush. If I hadn't had Jigsaw and Cesaresia with me to battle the newly spawned monsters I couldn't spare attention for, it would have ended right there. Anyone who thinks we equines are placid, gentle creatures would have been stunned by the ferocity and determination of those two magnificent mares that day.
Okay, I just gotta get this out in the open. Equines are not placid, gentle creatures. Those guys, are terrifying when they get violent.
Yeah, but that's when they get violent.
I once got bitten by a horse with no teeth. It was extremely painful. Like closing your hand in a door.
Yeah, well, you once bit me.
Okay, but that was just to turn you into a vampire.
That was extremely painful too.
But you got immortality!
It didn't work.
Oh, that's right. At least we got you to the hospital in time.
Wizzy, we've already established I don't know what a hospital is.
Okay, it was a first aid kit.
When their magic guttered low, they used their horns, hooves, and teeth. Celestia blessed them, they kept me safe. It was a good tactic, and it might have even worked. What we would have done when the crystal and all of us were exhausted, and the changelings swarmed in, I'm not certain. But I'm sure I would have thought of something. As it happened, we never got the chance to find out. There was still a perilous amount of dark magic in the remains of the crystal when it shattered into millions of pieces. The alternating stresses caused by my manipulation of its energy flow had fatigued its very structure to the point where it simply disintegrated. 1 second, a web of tiny cracks appeared over its surface, and the next, that tiny moment between fracturing and disintegrating gave me barely enough time to react. I was channeling a large amount of the dark magic through myself to keep the crystal stable, and it was a simple matter to shut off the conduit that bled it away. That meant that I could pull in the sudden explosion of energy and contain it, possibly. I'd once absorbed the power of 3 other alicorns, hadn't I? Could a flood of dark magic be much worse? Given any time to think, I would have concluded that it was ludicrously dangerous, but time wasn't a luxury I didn't have, as I instinctively absorbed all of the remaining dark magic the crystal had left.
She's dead.
Blech. It felt nice. I smiled and kicked off the grounding wire. What had I been worried about? Oh, there were some pathetic little creatures assaulting my friends and I, but it was a trivial task to remove them all, so I did.
Wait.
Yo.
Are we getting villain Twilight?
I don't know, maybe.
That sounds very, this is exactly what happened with Chrysalis, isn't it?
Maybe. I mean, eh. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I looked up to the hole in the ceiling where the changelings had begun to pour in, so earnest in the service of their queen, adorable, really. I rose to meet them, and when they saw me, they turned and fled. I emerged into the ruined and roofless cornucopia building, where there was a considerable confusion and turmoil among the changeling ranks. They obviously needed to be organized. "Be silent," I told them. The outer wall of the building fell away and threw a great cloud of dust into the air.
Oh my god. So her speech is now in bold, I want to point out. Something's wrong with Twilight, guys.
Nah.
Something's wrong with Jen as well. I think she may have absorbed some of the dark magic through the fanfic.
Wizzy, be silent.
Okay.
I also don't think Wizzy understands the difference between reality and fiction.
Wait. Those are synonyms.
Yeah. Yeah, they are, buddy. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Don't try and gaslight me.
I removed the dust. It wouldn't do for my new subjects to be distracted by trivialities. They all cast long shadows that spread out in a big fan shape behind them. It was pretty. I swept a hoof out, indicating a line in front of me, and said, "Approach." They all cringed for some reason, but several moved to obey. Others milled about. Still others fled. I thought perhaps I should start with basic protocol and then ease them into more strict formations later. "You must bow before me," I instructed them. That was better. It's not exactly the Jigsaw villain arc that I wanted, but it's okay, I guess.
I'm liking this. I wasn't expecting it, so it's a twist that I'm welcoming. Although I do, I was with you on the Jigsaw villain part. But
well.
honestly, that would have had to have that couldn't have been anything to do with the dark magic. To be satisfactory, that would have had to been Jigsaw making choices.
That's very, very true. Maybe the last two chapters can squeeze something out.
She makes out with Twilight, drinks up the dark magic, and is like, "You know what? I like it this way. This is what I wanted from the beginning."
We should totally try and get Esau on the podcast for an interview or something. I'm just curious what goes through their head. And I mean them interviewing us.
Oh, perfect. I'm very bad at asking people questions, but I'm very great at answering them.
Yeah, I'm good at neither, but I prefer talking about myself.
Amen.
That was better. A large number flattened themselves to the ground, but there was one group in particular that didn't seem to understand. One of them shouted. Let's get the Elmo one.
"We'll be none but a queen, you monster!"
Oh dear, split authority. That hardly ever worked out well. Your queen? There she was, surrounded by a knot of larger armored troops glaring defiance at me. Well, no schoolroom could operate efficiently with two teachers intent on using different materials. She would have to go. I am your queen now, I explained. One of the armored officers charged at me. I removed her from life, I assume.
That's what it sounds like. I deleted her.
Just did the old Control-Alt-Delete.
Ended her process.
I turned my attention to Chrysalis. She set her stance and looked me directly in the eyes. Her head held high and proud. That was nice. She was strong and brave. I respected that, and I thought that perhaps I would miss her when she was gone. Before I could act, a smaller changeling in armor flew up in front of Chrysalis and held her hooves out toward me, as if she could fend me off somehow. That's so cute. Oh, that was funny. She was afraid, and her hooves were trembling badly. Her hooves. That was odd. All the other changelings had big holes in their hooves, but the one that tried to protect the queen had only small dimples on her legs. Oh. Oh.
Jigsaw!
I don't think it's Jigsaw. I think it's Kashari. Especially considering how they were described wearing armor.
Oh, that's true. Oh, I forgot that they were healing. I
Yeah.
was thinking that this one didn't have holes in her legs. It was like, oh, it's a pony. I forgot that these ones were healing.
I mean, it is a pony. They were described as Cesaressi was described earlier as a pony.
What? Semantics.
Suddenly, I didn't want to remove the frightened little changeling, but I needed to. I was confused. I didn't like being confused. It had been simple. Then it wasn't simple anymore. That made me angry. They shouldn't thwart me. Who knew better than I how things should be organized? I had knowledge, I had experience, I had been in this situation many times before, only I had been on the other side. They couldn't win, but they were defying me. That was silly. This is so much like Equestria Girls Friendship Games.
I wish I watched that.
I think this came out before then. Yeah, this is like
Is this
Midnight
how she
Sparkle
acted?
shit.
Was Midnight Sparkle just like, ugh, you guys, you shouldn't put up resistance. Just bow to me.
Not really. But, you know, Twilight getting corrupted by magic, turning evil and stuff like that. That's very much
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
this whole thing. And also getting stopped by Kashari. That's exactly what happened with Spike.
Spike the dog?
Yep.
Oh man.
Anyways. Stop that, I told them. I swept out a wing, and the blade of black energy it shed tore away a section of the city. It fell into the canyon with a rumbly noise that should have cheered me up. It didn't. Chrysalis reached out and pushed Kashari aside.
There is no need for you to die.
She whispered to her. Chrysalis thought I couldn't hear her, but I could. She took several steps towards me and spoke loudly. Loudy.
Loudy.
Loudiy.
Do it yourself.
Esau. Oh, DIY. I got it.
If you are their new queen, you must care for them better than I have done.
I wish she would stop looking at me.
Please, your highness.
Kashari cried out.
Don't.
I unleashed my power. All those carved unicorns melted into slag. The ground buckled and warped. Quartz paving stones exploded like fireworks, and sudden black smoke billowed up into the clear desert sky. It felt good. Even though I had turned aside from the target, I really wanted to smite. The changelings backed hurriedly away from the part of the city that was slumping into a shapeless mass. I suppose it had gotten a trifle warm. I glanced back at Chrysalis. She was still looking at me. That made me want to melt other things. So I took to the air and flew down the canyon, re-sculpting it as I went. I knew I wasn't going to be happy until I fixed the changeling situation. But I kept going, farther and farther from the city, burning everything that passed beneath me. When I started to feel lightheaded, I thought it was because I was becoming less upset. But I was wrong. It meant I was about to pass out. The last thing I felt was my wings thrashing wildly in the turbulence as I tumbled from the sky. Splat. The end. Do-do-do-do-do-do. The sand was probably real. It was too boring to be a dream. The sand tasted real. I tried to spit it out, but my mouth was too dry. I ended up making pathetic little pfoo noises. I thought about standing up, and that's when I started to hurt all over. I attempted to summon up a palliative spell, but my magic was gone. I was completely drained. The sensible option was to continue to lie where I was and try not to think about hurting so much. Since I didn't have the energy to do much else, that's what I did. To keep from thinking about the pain, I thought about other things, like what I had just done, for instance. It takes energy to be terrified, outraged, and ashamed. So I just lay there and thought about it. I was glad I hadn't killed Chrysalis and Kashari in my madness. But there had been others. No, I decided I'd rather think about the pain. Ugh, man, I feel ya. My back is aching right now. I thought the buzzing was in my head at first, but then I saw the black shadows rippling over the sand as the changelings came in for a landing in the arroyo. I supposed it wasn't going to be hurting for much longer.
Is she dead?
And also, if she is, dibs. I get to eat her first.
I call eating her face.
Na, Chrysalis asked. It didn't sound like she cared much one way or the other. It was Kashari who bent down and looked into my face. I blinked to show her that I was still alive. She levitated over a gourd filled with water and dribbled some on my lips. I licked it away, and she dribbled some more. Chrysalis walked over and settled down in front of me.
Kick her in the horn if she tries anything.
She told a subordinate. Hi, Chrissy, I croaked. She scowled at me.
You just had to destroy my only hope, didn't you?
Nuh-uh, I said. It was kind of funny. I guess I was still a bit loopy. I would have laughed if I hadn't been sure it would be agonizing to do so. It wasn't the crystal. I told you that. Stupid dark magic can't do anything good. I broke off and coughed. My following scream of pain was so loud, it echoed off of what was left of the canyon walls for several seconds. Chrysalis pinned her ears back, looking irritated, and gave a peremptory jerk of her head. I felt a cool sensation wash over me, and the pain subsided. I tried to thank her, but my throat was too dry, and I coughed again. Thankfully, it caused only a moderate amount of pain that time. Kashari gave me more water, and I swallowed gratefully. It's friendship, Chrysalis, I said. The magic of friendship. I know you think that's sentimental foolishness, but it's the only explanation that fits all of the facts. So, go make a friend. Be beautiful again. She rolled her eyes and sighed. She looked away from me for a while and gazed off into the sky. Then she seemed to come to a decision and stood up. She motioned to a couple of drones to lift me up.
You should be on your feet for this.
The fuck is a feat? She told me. I gritted my teeth and set my legs in a good, wide stance before the drones let go of me. I wasn't going to let myself fall again. If Chrysalis could look at her own death in the eye, I certainly couldn't do anything less. Author's note. Thanks to Gogito for another superb editing job. Guess they did do this one. Particularly in straightening out the kinks in my description of magical goings-on. Yeah, you were. That were very much less clear than clear. And that was Chapter 22 of the Celestia Code, A Matter of Perspective, by Esau, obviously.
I can't even remember what the typo is that we were calling out Gogito for.
It wasn't necessarily a typo. It was just like a... what was it? A clunky sentence, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Something about multi-legged.
Yeah, that's the one. Oh well, either way, superb editing job. Gogito could have used with a bit less loudy, but that's okay.
This was a really great couple chapters, though.
Yeah, definitely.
This dark twilight was a thing I did not realize that was going to happen, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Did she get all of her dark magic out when she blasted it, and now she's good again?
Maybe. It said that she doesn't have any, so we'll see, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. In the sequel, she looks kind of weird. Who's to say? Dang, man, these two chapters were very cool. A very cool climax for this story that I did not see coming.
I feel like Celestia, Kashari did get that whole thing at the end. That was good. That was cool. Celestia didn't get much to do. But Jigsaw, I really liked how Jigsaw was able to use her athletic abilities to win the whole thing.
Definitely. Yeah, I thought that they were utilized pretty well, personally. Um, yeah, I am just shocked that it was this epic of an ending. I don't know. It just didn't seem that like type of fantasy we were going towards. I was expecting a bit more of a tame ending, honestly. Um,
I was expecting a little bit more mystery and clues and puzzle solving from the beginning, but so far with Esau's writing, this is like, man.
Definitely. I really did like playing Evil Twilight. I really liked how it was written out and stuff like that. That was very fun.
Yeah.
Yes, of course I would have preferred Evil Jigsaw. I've been wanting that from day one. I have been clawing at that idea. But I get it. We're not gonna get it. I was expecting to not get it. But wouldn't it have been fun?
It would have been so fun.
Oh well. Yeah. That's that. So, what do we think is gonna happen? I guess, they'll probably just talk with Chrysalis a bit more and then go home. And then I suspect that Twilight and Jigsaw will not talk to each other much anymore. Or maybe they will.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm guessing that Chrysalis is like gonna almost execute Twilight here, because that seems like what she's trying to do, but what's
Oh,
gonna save
yeah.
her, I don't know.
That's right.
It's gonna be like Jigsaw comes in and like rips off her shirt and she's super jacked and just punches Chrysalis and all the changelings down. It's like, don't hurt my boo.
Probably. Actually, okay, so now that you mention it, yeah, it's a very good idea that we made sure to get rid of all of Twilight's magic back there, so that this could actually be a threat, because the entire story she has been kind of bragging that she's literally the most powerful being in all of the universe. So it's good to see her get kicked down a peg. So now we have a reason to fear for her life.
Woohoo!
Of course, it's written like a diary, so I don't think we have to actually worry about that, but we'll see.
It's like, and this is what I would have written in my diary if I had survived.
Oh well. So yeah. That's all I have to say about this this final, or these penultimate chapters here. The climax here. Anything else
Yeah.
from you?
I think I've said my piece.
Wizzy has no more words. He is just so stunned. All right,
I'm
well,
speechless
Esau,
by the beauty of this story.
just a single tear rolls down from your eyes.
This is more moisture than the inside of Twilight's mouth.
All right, well, thank you all for listening. Esau, if you could, please tell us how to say your name.
It's pronounced Isa.
That's all.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
See ya!
Hello. This is Walter Cronkite.
Well, hi.
Are you Applejack?
Nope.
Oh, then I will continue my search.
Alrighty then.
Yo, did you see that? That was Walter Cronkite.
Weird.